And McLaren are back on top of the Drivers' Championship and stretching ahead in the Constructors' Championship.
And as Lewis and Jensen drink that champagne, it must taste fantastic. It's been a pretty hot afternoon here in Canada and a pretty hot race for McLaren. That's their second 1-2 finish in succession, David. Tyres aren't the most fascinating subject in Formula 1, but they can give us fascinating racing.
Well, I disagree. I think the tyres are fantastic. I said it during the show. When we had the tyre war between Michelin and Bridgestone, it gave us some of the best racing in Formula 1. One of the difficulties when you have a single supplier is there's no motivation for those guys to come up with a marginal tyre. They did here. I think Bridgestone should be congratulated because it gave us a great strategic race, and obviously McLaren and the drivers managed it at best.
Well, we found a really good substitute for wet races, haven't we? We make sure that the difference between the soft tyre and the hard tyre is as wide as it is here, and then you're guaranteed of a fantastic race. This was an enthralling encounter. Fabulous race.
Well, Ron Dennis is here with us. Ron, just pop in here next to me and we'll have a chat about your emotions. I imagine the last time Lewis was on that podium was his first win in Formula 1. You were probably up there with him. How does it feel watching from down here?
It's great. I mean, you know, I'm still a racer. It's a tremendous motor race for everybody, but it's a little bit special for us.
It's nice to see you smile. How nervous were you before the race with the soft tyres that your boys were on?
We were pretty relaxed, really. I think we knew we were taking a gamble yesterday. I mean, the team did a great job, but it's a gamble that paid off. We really covered safety car. That was the thing that could have really played to us, but as it happens, we have the pace anyway.
Ron, you say you're still a racer. You're obviously very much involved in the overall group at McLaren. How much are you involved on a day-to-day basis or week-to-week basis back at the factory?
Martin and I have run the group for a long time in one capacity or another, and that remains unchanged. I mean, the simple fact is I've structured my my business now and the companies to function in a way that gives me freedom. I can choose what races I go to, and Martin's doing a great job, so just makes me feel good. Should have done it a bit sooner, I think, but I wanted to win a championship, which is what we did in 2008, and it's just great to lead this one again, and both the drivers. It's I think a big statement to our team, which is we're relentless on development, and that means we win races.
With regard to development and next year's car, Ron, surely we need a decision on the tyre manufacturer, and I know that we spoke to Martin about the possibility now of maybe Michelin making a late come into this as a possible supplier next year. Is that what you would like to see at McLaren?
Well, it's actually made a bit easier than it was in the early discussions because both companies have agreed to make tyres the same size. That means you don't have to go around a whole new set of geometry regulations. So we can pretty much adapt, but a decision for everybody is a good thing to have because to know which direction we're going in, but we don't need it quite yet.
OK, Ron, thank you very much indeed. I know you've got a lot of celebrating to do with the guys, so feel free to head off and do that, and we'll have a chat to the current team principal, Martin Whitmarsh. We'll squeeze him in. A nice cuddle between you two.
What? He does all the work.
Of course he does all the work, and that's why he gets a big smile at the end of it. How was that in the garage for you today?
Well, I think for everyone in the garage, it was fantastic. I think drivers just did a fantastic job. I think a lot of people doubted the strategy at the beginning, but we knew we had to drop the cars into empty space on the track. I think Phil and others in the team were really overseeing that, and I think they did a fantastic job. But the drivers, of course, had to look after the tyres, had to show the pace as well.
Well, Phil Prue, the senior race engineer, is alongside you. You've got your stopwatch around your neck. I guess that tells you that your boys are the quickest out there today.
It does indeed, yeah. And we great pace in the race, great pace in qualifying as well. But really, the race pace made the difference and allowed us to challenge for the front two positions. Yeah, great.
Martin, when we spoke to you before the race, you seemed to have a genuine doubt whether the option tyre was going to be the right tyre. You were gambling on that safety car, which never came. What was the change today? What was it that you were able to make the tyres work better once you got onto the Prime?
I think the Prime tyre was also problematic as well, and I think we were a little bit fortunate. We were able to see a gap in the traffic. We had to put the drivers into there, and then they could show their pace. So, I think at the end of it, I think we made the right decisions, but you've got to have a little bit of good fortune, and I think we did that. But I think the drivers drove brilliantly, both of them. I mean, fantastic to see Jensen overtaking Fernando like that. It was a great feeling in the whole team, I'm sure.
Martin, should I take back my words? I think I said...
You should always take back your words, Eddie, in my experience, my friend.
Pain. And there you defy the logic and you actually go and finish 1-2. How on earth did you ever manage that thing? And I just don't understand it.
No, you wouldn't, Eddie.
There you go, as Lewis Hamilton's car gets pushed past, as you can see the damage to the tyres. Gentlemen, you're all wearing grey at the moment. Go and put on some rocket red, and congratulations, well done.
Thank you. Eddie,
Thanks.
you speak rubbish all the time. Come on, we all know that.
There's a sign of a very educated man, and he should know.
OK, we'll leave Eddie to go and cuddle people and get all overexcited in the pit lane while we go to the driver's press conference.
Lewis, back-to-back wins. You're leading the championship, and I guess the love affair with Canada continues.
It's been a tremendous weekend. It's been fantastic. I got here on Wednesday, and things have just gone so well throughout the weekend. I've had incredible support from the fans here. So many Brits out here, which is great to see. And yeah, the team did an exceptional job. I think the race was, one of the toughest races so far, but that's what you want, to have the hardest fight. These guys did an incredible job. Jensen did a great job, and another 1-2 for us. So very happy, proud of the team.
Well done. Jensen, your race was really about being patient and then taking your opportunities when they came, including the pass, of course, on Fernando.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very difficult race, this type of race, because the tyres are so important, and you're never sure if you're looking after the tyres enough or if you're pushing enough. I had Vettel pushing me for about 20 laps, just so close to me when I was trying to look after the tyres. I hit some traffic and was able to pull a gap on him and then reel in these two. So a great race, and a really enjoyable race. Not just a race about being flat out every lap. We had to really think about every situation. I think if you watch the race, certain people were very quick at certain parts of the race, and that made it very exciting. And it's great to be back up here again. Another 1-2 for the team. Well done to this guy. I'd rather it was the other way around, but I must say, the team have done a great job this weekend, and Lewis put in a phenomenal lap yesterday that I couldn't touch. So. It's great to be here in P2.
Well done. Fernando, some great battles with both of these guys, but your face suggests that you think you should have won today.
I think it was a good day for us. The car was very competitive here in Canada. And yeah, I think we had the really good opportunity to win today. First with the fight with Luis, we overtook thanks to a fantastic pit stop from our guys on the pit lane, and then we lost the position with some traffic, and then we lost the position with traffic again with Hispania in front in the last laps of the race with Jensen. So both of those cases we lost 10 points from 25 to 15, but we're still there in the championship. It was a great recovery from the team. We were, I think, 50 seconds behind McLaren in Turkey in position 8, and we fight for the win here in Canada. So we are moving in the right direction, and I think we are back in the fight.
Lewis, a very intense race, but tell us about that fight with Fernando, the two parts to it, coming out of the pit lane and also the pass.
Well, I think I came in quite a bit ahead of him, but clearly we had not the best pit stop, and he was able to. I saw him being released, and as I pulled away, I couldn't. He was kind of in my blind spot. I didn't even know he was there, but I tried to make sure I had enough space, and all of a sudden he was right there with me, and we raced all the way down to the first corner, and he had the inside line, so he got ahead. But after that was just, he had great pace. He put up a really good fight, and traffic was very difficult today. So that was really the opportunity for all of us, I think, through traffic to get past the guy in front, and I capitalized on that. So, fair play to him.
Well, congratulations to Lewis Hamilton. It was only traffic that was difficult today, it was tyres as well, and here we are walking along with Jensen Button's car. Now, if there's one man in Formula 1, David, who can look after tyres, it's Jensen Button. He's famous for it, but these are absolutely ruined.
They are indeed. There's a bit of pickup on there as well, Jake, which is making them look a little bit worse. And
could you
the
slow
reason
down
why we're
slightly
able to
for us?
walk with the car is you see all that pickup. That's when he's been running offline, and those little marbles of rubber that he's trying to bring the weight of the car up. And basically the podiums at that end of the pit lane, the end of the pit lane, they now have to, these poor guys have to push it all the way up to where the FIA scales are and join all the rest of the cars where all the technical checks will be done on this car to make sure it's legal. But as you rightly say, Jensen is the sort of king of smooth driving, but obviously Lewis today is the guy that stands in the middle spot in the podium. So a great result from McLaren.
Mark Webber was leading by over 11 seconds at one point, Eddie. Red Bull decided not to bring him in, yet he was struggling with tyres just like this. Could they have run a better race at that point, do you think?
Yeah, well, I know we all talk about hindsight, don't we? But on reflection, I think there was probably just a smidgen of a mistake made. I think there was a window when Mark should have come in with about 20 laps to go. You see, what David is talking about, the pickup here is the same on soft tyres as well. So, you know, you don't know what those marbles are. They could be hard tyre, they could be soft tyre, and the pickup, one, it makes the car heavier for weighing, but it also helps in the longevity and the usage of the tyres towards the end of the race.
Well, as we've been walking down the pit lane here, it's clouded over and then the track temperature will drop. So really the hindsight gain that we're playing here, obviously Red Bull were gambling on a certain set of conditions that would give them the advantage, and could well have worked had we had slightly cooler track temperatures. But in the end of the day, they didn't expect this to be one of their strongest races because they don't have very good top speed relative to McLaren. I don't think they'll be that disappointed ultimately with the race result, because this is just one stage in a long Grand Prix season.
OK, well, in terms of the race result, McLaren will be delighted. Congratulations to them. It's a 1-2 finish for the second successive race. They did it in Turkey, they've done it in Canada. Congratulations to Lewis Hamilton. He hadn't won a Grand Prix ahead of this weekend, and now he's managed to pick up 2 wins in a row. Fernando Alonso, he finishes in 3rd for Ferrari, with Sebastian Vettel and Mark Webber pretty close together for Red Bull. It was a disappointing weekend for Mercedes. They came here with high hopes. Michael Schumacher was saying he was bang on form. The team were hoping for great things from him, but he scrapped with all kinds of guys and ended up just slipping past Suttel at the end there to finish 11th. And it was disappointing as well for the guys up here, Rubens Barrichello in the Williams, and Felipe Massa. We'll talk about his race because he was really handcuffed from the very start. He had a coming together on the first corner and didn't really recover from that. And those are the rest of the guys that failed to finish the 2010 Canadian Grand Prix, with poor old Kobayashi, who's having a season to forget at the very back. He was the first to retire, and this is how it affects the Drivers' Championship. Lewis Hamilton, for the first time this season, is your World Championship leader, but look how tight this is. 3 points between him and Jenson Button. A further 3 points between him and Mark Webber, and then Fernando Alonso, a man who knows how to win World Championships in Formula One, just behind them, with Sebastian Vettel as driven as ever a little bit further back. And let's have a look at some of the more lowly point scorers amongst the guys. You can see some people have yet to pick up points in Formula One this year. Kamui Kobayashi, a day to forget, just 1 solitary point so far. And as far as the Constructors' Championship's concerned, well, all McLaren have done today is to cement their lead at the top. They've moved further ahead of Red Bull, with Ferrari a little bit distant to them, and Mercedes really starting to struggle at the back there. So there you go, those are the standings after today's Grand Prix, and it was good for us. It was good for McLaren, but it was great for these guys. You can see the fans lined up all the way along. Just take a little look. They have made this a fantastic Grand Prix. They don't disappoint here, do they?
No, and look at that for the ultimate fan of Formula One. He's got a gentleman there with a tattoo of the
that
Formula
looks
One
painful to me
on his back. I don't know if we can pick that up in the camera. You see there, that
looks painful.
That looks like a permanent tattoo as well. So there's a real passion for racing out here in Montreal.
I thought Jenson Button's very small button on his forearm was enough, but that really is very painful indeed. Unbelievable. Right, let's go back to the race action now. Let's go straight back to the start. Lewis Hamilton has started on pole here twice before. Every single time he's managed to keep that lead going into the first corner.
Well, that's a great effort, because he's actually on the slightly dirty side as you run down to the first corner. You can see that it was all very much nip and tuck between the top 3 starters, and a fairly clean run there, apart from Antonio Liuzzi and Felipe Massa, who come together once, twice, and 3 times not so lucky, as Antonio spins round and Massa has to make his way back to the pits for a new nose.
And it's such a shame that for Antonio Liuzzi, Eddie. We heard from him before the Grand Prix, and we can actually see it from his point of view here. His best ever qualifying, he started 5th on the grid, and then this happens.
He just slightly gets bogged down, and a very fast starting Massa, you can see, and he squeezes him. But that's a racing incident. What I have to say is, despite all that, he got himself together and he drove really well, and he beat his teammate Suttel, and he scored a couple of points. So for me, a really strong day for Liuzzi, despite, you know, what had happened at the start.
Yeah, you can see the way the race began for him. Well done to Antonio Liuzzi. He finishes 9th. Mark Webber, how would you surmise his race?
Well, they went with a particular strategy. I think that given his gearbox issues, he'll not be too disappointed. As you can see on board there, picking up a bird's-eye view of the incident between Massa and Liuzzi. It was looking good for a moment. He was just over 10-second lead, and then his tyres, he came on the radio and said to the team, I'm starting to lose the tyres slowly. And that was the moment. He needed 16 seconds to really make that stick. So in the end, finishing just 1 place behind his teammate, I don't think they'll be too disappointed with that.
Now, Michael Schumacher failed to make it into the top 10 shootout for the first time since his return, Eddie, which put him in the midfield going into this first corner, and that is not a place that you want to be.
Michael Schumacher will look back in years to come about Canada, and he'll say, for all the great glory days that I had here, 7 of them a pole position. This was, for him, a hugely disappointing day, and indeed for the whole team. Although Rosberg did a reasonable job and got himself up there. But really, this car, at this moment, if today is the indicator, it's in poor shape.
Martin Brundle described this as Michael's worst race since his return. In fact, his worst race weekend since his return. Would you agree?
Well, the thing is, we've just got such high expectations of Michael. You know, all of us remember his 91 victories and the period that he dominated Formula One. And, you know, quite frankly, I wish he hadn't been there whilst I was racing. But, you know, coming back now in a slightly less competitive car, struggling to come to grips with these narrower front tyres. And you've got to say, overall, with the first 8 races, it's been a lukewarm return to Formula One.
But David, it's not just that. You know, you've had Al-Jawari for the second time because he did it previously. And then you had Sutil and Luizzi. These are names that shouldn't be taking what we consider to be one of the total icons of our sport. Yeah. This is a very bad day for Michael.
And the other thing to remember is he's won here 7 times. Everywhere we go, there's huge expectations for Michael to live up to, and that can't be easy. Well, there was expectations on Mark Webber to have a good race this afternoon. And early doors, it was a fantastic battle between Jenson Button and Mark Webber, wasn't it?
Yeah, this was great racing. This was a battle between different tyre strategies, and you can see through turn 5, Mark running a little bit in the dirty air, hassling Jenson, able to take a bit more curb there, and then gets a firm run off 6, and there he is, right in the prime spot. Got to say, Jenson was incredibly fair here. He left the door open, probably didn't think that Mark would make it stick. That is very difficult to break on the inside there under the bridge, but beautiful textbook manoeuvre, and at that point it was looking good.
Great professional driving. This is the epitome of, you know, when you're talking about looking at casebook study, this is what you need to do, is clear, clean, and sporting.
Yeah, and you can see the graining on the left rear tyre of Jenson there, and there's Mark, pulls out, doesn't quite have the straight line speed of the McLaren, but manages to make it stick under braking.
Now, Eddie said clean, clear and sporting there. How clean, clear and sporting was the pit stop for Lewis Hamilton as he came bursting out?
Well, it was a very close fought thing as we were actually joining there's Lewis making his pit stop, and then followed in there by the Ferrari of Alonso. So let's just let them run into their stops. For those of everyone who saw the race, they'll know that we both got relatively clean pit stops here.
Now, just explain the rule about the release in this situation.
Well, normally there's a marker in the pit lane to say that you can't release your car if another car's passed by that point. The confusing thing here, of course, is that they're beside each other in the pit lane. But here you have ex-teammates Fernando Alonso and Lewis Hamilton going wheel to wheel on the run down to that first corner. And in this case, Fernando makes it stick. But that was as close as you're going to see 2 guys in the pit lane.
But that rule, David, I'm sure you'd agree, the rule itself needs to be looked at. There could not be a penalty, even though that was effectively a dangerous situation. But you couldn't apply a penalty because it just wouldn't be fair. Who would you give it to, and for what reason? They're too close to each other, and that marker rule of so many meters between each car is a nonsense. It's not working.
Well, this is the angle from Fernando Alonso's car. It shows how quickly these things happen, doesn't it?
Well, indeed, and the fact is that when Lewis is released from his box, he doesn't know exactly where Fernando is. Look at those tiny mirrors. You can see it there on the left side of Lewis's cockpit. That's all the driver has to see out the back of his car, and it doesn't give you lateral vision. It only shows you out the back. So Lewis knew that it would be close, but he wouldn't know exactly where Fernando was until he turned up alongside him. Quite a difficult situation for the drivers.
Absolutely, and a difficult day for Emerson Fittipaldi. There was things going on left, right and centre for Emerson to sort out, wasn't there?
For Emerson
was the judge.
The race steward.
Oh, excuse me. I wondered where you were coming from.
Do you think for a minute I thought Emerson was racing today?
I thought we'd gone back in time.
You're going back in time.
I thought it was the opener at the beginning with David Coleman that you thought we were back in 67. Yeah, I think, quite frankly, it would be very difficult for Emerson to be able to make any call on that because, you know, the latter part of his career was spent in IndyCar racing, and, you know, there they have a pit stop for each of the cars. This is one of the difficulties of Formula One, where you have one pit crew for both cars. A great scenario would be if we had longer pit lanes and every team was able to service both cars at the same time.
Yeah, this is perhaps a pit lane that could do with slightly refreshing, actually. You can see the buildings behind us. It might not be pristine and perfect, but it does create fantastic racing. Now, Eddie, Michael Schumacher, you got him involved in Formula One early doors. You know he can be a little bit naughty. How naughty was he up against Robert Kubica?
Well, he had a shocker. We've already discussed that, and this is... look, I mean, what's happening here is... It's unsporting, number one. He definitely squeezes him out. He moves off the quick line. Look what's happening. He moves him right over onto the grass. But actually, worse is to come. They come into the corner, and he he basically blocks Kubica. This, for me, was a bad move. Both cars went off, and it was a miracle that they actually came out in one piece at the other end.
Well, you know, you wouldn't expect anything different, quite frankly, from Michael, and Robert would be aware of that. You know, you build up a picture as you see Michael coming out at the end of the pit lane there. Robert would be desperately trying to get the throttle open, manages to get his nose inside, and at this point, you can see that Michael was actually able to power ahead. And you know, I see it more as a racing incident, quite frankly, because Michael was ahead into braking, but he must have known when he hit the brakes he wouldn't make the turn, and he took the gamble and going across the grass, and in this case, it worked for him.
Now, there'll be a fair few Schumacher fans watching this. He's got a car that's okay. We can see from that he's as aggressive and as driven to win as ever. Where is the problem with Michael Schumacher? Can you put your finger on it?
I think the first problem is the car does not have the out-and-out speed. And when you don't have the out-and-out speed, you have to compromise on other things like aero and all sorts of different things, tyre strategy, because you're always fighting an uphill battle. He is fighting an uphill battle. It's not working. He's not ready for it. He's not used to it. He always had a very dominant position, and he was brilliant in that capacity, but he is now flawed. This is, for me, a flawed race by him.
Sit on the fence, why don't you?
What I think is going to be interesting is that, you know, Michael's been very calm when we've seen him in the interviews so far this season. He started to smile a bit more when he was obviously out qualifying Rosberg, which is the only real judge of whether he's getting the most out of the car or not. But I'm amazed that at 41, after such a dominant career in Formula 1, that he has the patience, you know, that's really necessary to work through the development of this car. You know, he talks about developing for next year, so clearly he is focusing on next season. But I can't imagine that he would be sticking around much after next season if the car doesn't pick up in performance.
Does it put you off a comeback?
I wasn't thinking about a comeback. I'm quite happy doing what I'm doing. You know, look at this. I get to stand beside you, gentlemen, during a Grand Prix. Doesn't get any better than this.
Oh, nothing gets better than this. Mark Webber had a weekend to forget in some ways, didn't he? A great qualifying yesterday, then he had a problem with his gearbox, then he had problems with his tyres in the race. How does he feel about ending up fifth? He's with Lee McKenzie.
Mark, what a day, so close and yet so far.
Yeah, that's right. Now, we knew it was going to be a bit like that here today. Tyres playing a huge role in the race also. When you obviously made the pit strategies that we did, and I think in the end we did the best we could do. Obviously they split the cars with Seb on the option in the middle. I stayed on the prime, was going to finish the race on the option, and also it's dangerous waiting for a safety car as well, in terms of, because if that happens, obviously then your race is pretty much over when you're in the front, so as the race is neutralised. So yeah, mixed emotions. I mean, yeah, after the penalty this morning, 7th, but then I had a good first few laps. I managed to get into a few people, and that took its toll a little bit on the first set of tyres, so I was in trouble a little bit earlier than I would have liked. And then, yeah, wasn't too bad.
What goes through your mind when you're in that situation? You're leading, you know you've got to come in again. I mean, did it work out worse than you'd expected?
Not really. I knew everyone was pretty close together. I know I was obviously monitoring the gap to Lewis. It was going away a little bit at the start, obviously, because I knew he was pacing to get to the end. I was just trying to hold my pace constant, and then in the end the tyres didn't want that pace, so in the end they go away. It's virtually impossible to keep them happy. The tyres just keep degrading. Doesn't really matter how slow you drive. So in the end, wasn't really a surprise, because I knew people were tightly packed up behind Lewis, and to come back out 5th, yeah, it would have been nice to be a few more players. I wanted to get some champagne today, but in the end didn't happen.
Well, perhaps it'll happen for him in Valencia in 2 weeks' time. I hope you can join us for that. So, Mark Webber finishes 5th, just in front of him, his friend Sebastian Vettel. Don't forget, of course, Australia play Germany in the World Cup today. Let's hear now from Sebastian.
Yeah, I think halfway, or, you know, after the first stint, more or less, we had to slow down a bit, and we had a gearbox issue. So, in the end, especially save the car and bring it home. But, yeah, I was a bit surprised. Obviously, you come in as a leader, and I don't know how we managed to come out behind all the others. So I think we did the right thing with tires. Everything worked and you know, happened according to our plan. The others survived very little on the soft tire in the beginning, as you could see. So they had to stop early, and usually they should come out in traffic and, you know, their race is over. But it didn't seem to be the case. So I think they were in clean air, and obviously, you know, when I came to the pits, I got stuck behind them. So, and then with the problems I mentioned, that was it. Halfway as well, I had a lapped car that didn't want to move, which lost me 6 seconds at a time, and then I lost the connection to Fernando and Jensen. So I was not able to fight for the podium anymore.
Poor old Sebastian, but he's not alone. Apologies for the technical problems that we've been having this afternoon. Right, just to let you know, you can relive the highlights of the Canadian Grand Prix at midnight tonight. And then, in 2 weeks' time, we're back. More racing, more fun. The European Grand Prix on BBC One from Valencia. And next weekend, there's serious action at Silverstone on the new configured circuit. MotoGP arrives at Silverstone, and that is going to be cracking. Now, apparently, there's some other sport going on this weekend as well. Of course, match of the day, the World Cup highlights tonight at 10:15 over on BBC Two. But we are far from finished here. This is where we're going.
The F1 Forum on BBC.
The F1
Forum.
On
the red button.
Which red button? A red button? No. For what?
Race highlights.
Oh, dear, they come together! What was going on there? Hamilton's got the inside line and retakes.
He just needs to shuffle Schumacher out of the way. The thoughts of key players.
You can talk us through this from your perspective.
Have your say.
And let's just go through a few emails, actually, because we really want you guys to get in touch.
And general chaos. Excuse me.
OK, you're nicking off right now?
Yeah.
Well, thanks for that.
Also available online.
Yeah, it's good. It's great. Mega.
Oh, incredible day.
What are you doing?
And after the race we've had today, I won't be allowing Eddie Jordan or David Coulthard to nick off early. Right, guys, let's just sum up today's Grand Prix for those people that can't press red or head to the website and join us for the F1 Forum. You get the impression now, after 8 Grand Prix, that this season is becoming so competitive, don't you?
Well, indeed. Towards the end of that race, we had a McLaren, a Ferrari and a Red Bull, all covered with a few seconds. That is competitive Grand Prix racing. And we always knew this would be McLaren's sort of circuit because of the high-speed nature. Valencia completely turns that on its head. It'll be interesting to see who's on top when we get to that Grand Prix.
Yeah, we can see Rubens Barrichello's car being moved around just behind us. May have been a slight weekend to forget for Williams, but it's a weekend to remember for Formula One. We return to Canada, and it doesn't disappoint, does it?
Well, I would use the word triumphant, not just for McLaren, but for the sport in general, and indeed for a return to Canada. It was a remarkable, hugely successful race.
OK, Eddie, David, thank you both very much. Thank you as well for enjoying your Sunday afternoon with us. Congratulations to McLaren, a 1-2 finish for them. Lewis Hamilton proves that we can be world beaters after all. See you later.
This is going to be so tight.
Liuzzi almost coming together there. There's been a collision. They're almost coming together. Michael Schumacher's gone straight across the grass.
Hamilton under pressure from Alonso.
Oh! Is he going for the move? And he's taken it. Lewis Hamilton back in the lead. And Alonso Massagoso strikes perfectly. It's past Alonso. What happened there then? And it's a McLaren 1-2 now. Formula One's back in North America, and Lewis Hamilton wins again in Canada.